What if your next breakthrough isn't hiding behind big, strong effort? What if it's hiding behind openness and curiosity? What if the answer isn't trying harder in this hustle culture? What if it's becoming more curious? Makes sense. So this is called the prison of certainty, why staying curious is your new superpower. Here's a statement that's going to make you go, which is the whole purpose. The more certain you are about something, the less room that you have to grow. 0%, actually. None. Certainty and growth cannot coexist in the same room at the same time. Here's what your caveman brain doesn't want you to know. That feeling of being absolutely sure and certain, that's not actually wisdom. In fact, it's most probably a trap. So today, we're going to explore how intellectual humility and the simple act of staying curious could be the factor that unlocks the breakthrough that certainty has been blocking for so long, for so many years. And all it takes is just simply swapping one punctuation mark for another. Isn't that interesting? So great morning, humans. Great morning, world. My name is Dr. JC Doornick, AKA The Dragon, and this is the Make Sense with Dr. JC podcast, where confusion dies and progress thrives. All right, so let's talk about the most dangerous prison in the world. So there are prisons made of concrete and there are prisons made of steel. And then there are prisons made of certainty. Those are the hardest ones to escape from because the bars are invisible. How do you escape from a prison where the bars are invisible? And most people don't even realize that they're trapped, which is what the value of this podcast is sometimes you go, holy crap, I didn't know that I was trapped, right? So they call it being informed. So when we look at certainty, because we're kind of like, we live in a society that kind of demands certainty, and we've been raised to be certain of things. Are you sure? Are you sure? So we call it being informed, being experienced, and being realistic. It's simply a mind that has stopped exploring and stopped wondering. And the moment that we stop wondering, what happens? We stop growing. Why? Because growth requires space. And if you're 100% certain, and I know that a lot of you are 100% certain of a lot of things, and I understand why, but if we're 100% certain about anything, there is literally 0% room for growth. Now, there's value in certainty. I'm not telling you to never be certain. I'm just giving you a different vantage point. So when we're certain, there's no room for new information. No new information is welcome. No new perspectives are welcome. No new possibilities welcome. No extraneous, unusual miracles are open. No breakthroughs are open. No growth mindset, just repetition. And repetition is where dreams quietly go to die. Now, these are controversial statements, but what it does and the value of it is it gets you to think. That's it. So now we're going to talk about exclamation points versus question marks. This is really, really interesting. And this is an interesting tool that is really easy to apply. So most people walk through life with a big bag of exclamation points. They say things like, I know, exclamation point. No, that is wrong, exclamation point. That's impossible, exclamation point. People never change, exclamation point. How about this one? That's just who I am. Exclamation point. Exclamation points feel powerful because they carry certainty, but they shut down exploration. Now, question marks, on the other hand, which is just another punctuation, right? Question marks open exploration. So what if instead of saying this won't work, you either change the words or just said this won't work? You could just put a question mark at the end. Or you could say, I wonder how this might work, question mark. Instead of saying that's impossible, what if you said, that's impossible? Or what if we asked, what am I missing? Those are questions. Remember, the smartest person in the room, and it could be this room right here, is the one that asks questions. So instead of saying, I know exactly what's happening, what if you said, after a pause, you said, and you paused and said, what else could be true? So one of the simplest ways to become more open-minded is to soften your language. That's all we're talking about, is soften your language. For a lot of people, and me at certain times in my life, that's very scary. So what we're going to entertain is replacing certainty with possibility. We're going to entertain the idea of saying things like maybe, or perhaps it could be, might be, possibly. Why wouldn't we do that? Because we're attached to certainty. So those words aren't weaknesses. They're actually full of wisdom, open and curious wisdom. Remember, what I'm entertaining is that this is one of the most powerful superpowers and power moves we can make this year, is to be open and curious and agile and not know and see uncertainty as a potential power move. So those are full of wisdom. And the reason why is because reality is more complex than our certainty allows for. Reality is more complex than our certainty allows. And cognitive dissonance, not cognitive distancing, cognitive dissonance becomes much easier to navigate when we stop demanding that every answer be final. Why does every answer need to be perceived as final? I challenge you to get rid of that and say maybe, might be, possibly, could be. Maybe your current challenge isn't happening to you. There's a maybe. Maybe it's preparing you. I've got a lot of challenges going on right now, and I am entertaining that they're preparing me for something, for my next level, for my next move. Maybe they're your teacher. Maybe your greatest setback isn't a setback at all. See what maybe can do? That's wisdom. Maybe that one word creates breathing room for transformation. So let's look at curiosity versus indecision. Now let's be clear. Curiosity is not the same thing as indecision. Curiosity is not the absence of conviction. It's the willingness to update your conviction when better evidence appears true. So here's the good shift. What if your next breakthrough isn't hiding behind big, strong effort? What if it's hiding behind openness and curiosity? What if the answer isn't trying harder in this hustle culture? What if it's becoming more curious? Everything about prisons reminds us that all prisons have a door. And the door to the prison of certainty is shaped exactly like a question mark. So if you're ever trapped in a prison cell of certainty and you want to find the door, it's a question mark. Isn't that cool? I love that. So just in closing, I invite you today to examine your life and ask some questions, which is a great start. Where have I become absolutely certain in my life? What belief have I stopped questioning? What conclusion have I mistaken for the truth? And where might a simple create space for something better? So remember, growth lives in possibility. Wisdom lives in humility. And breakthroughs live just outside and beyond certainty. Make sense? If you learned something today, give it away. That's how it's going to stay. Do me a favor, hit subscribe and like the video if you're vibing with this. It helps us reach more people who need to hear this message. Share this with a friend and comment with a topic that you might want to hear in future episodes. I want to make sure that we're talking about things that matter most to you.
Makes sense.